Joining us now is Marc Morial, the CEO and president of the National Urban League. Marc, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. Good to be with you.
So we're going to talk about Trump's first 100 days of his second term. I want to bring this up. So in his first 100 days, President Trump has touted what he is calling his accomplishments, his office saying shutting down the borders among the top. In a recent interview with ABC, the president said, quote, "I am doing one thing. I am making America great again. Our country suffered greatly, and now our country is coming back like nobody can believe." Well, your office put out a statement titled 100 Days of Chaos Meets 100 Days of Resistance. You saying, in part, "The first 100 days of President Trump's second administration have been an unrelenting assault on civil rights, civil liberties, economic justice, and the constitutional separation of powers and the rule of law itself." Marc, let me ask you this. I should say, Mr. Morial. Where are you seeing that chaos play out?
Number one, you do not make America great when you fire 250,000 hardworking federal employees without a hearing, without any evidence that they have been engaged in any wrongdoing, without any evidence that they are wasteful or fraudulent or abusive. Number two, when you issue executive orders to wipe out equal opportunity, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, you are not making America great for everyone. You're dividing the nation. You're creating chaos and confusion inside of the government and in the community. When you attack great universities, nonprofit organizations, because they are working to fulfill their mission, you're not making America great for everyone. When you impose widespread tariffs that are going to create inflationary increases and also potentially slow down economic growth, you are not making America great for everyone. You're creating economic confusion, which is why so many economists and business leaders are predicting a recession. I hope there isn't one, but that's what these experts are predicting. But on the other hand, there's been resistance, lawsuits, protests, and political pushback against this agenda of the new president.
I want to hit on something that you mentioned, DEI, which has been a really big buzzword throughout the campaign trail and what we're seeing play out. We've seen several companies and universities pull back their DEI efforts in order to really kind of meet a federal mandate that has come down from the Trump administration. What is your message to those companies and universities who may feel like they have no other choice but to do this to get that federal funding?
They have to stand up for the basic principle and the rule of law. None of this is coming as a result of an act of Congress. None of this is coming as a result of changes in the law. They're coming from what I call press releases disguised as executive orders. In many cases, they don't have the force of law, but they are, if you will, they've had the effect to chill and intimidate many business, university, some nonprofit leaders from fulfilling their mission, which is protected by their right to free speech, which is protected by what's good for the nation. And I'm disappointed in it. I understand people's need to sort of carefully navigate. But in this moment, I think great institutional leaders should stand up for making America great for everyone. And that means, I say, diversity, equity, and inclusion, equal opportunity, a fair playing field. You can kind of call it what you want to call it, but the basic principle is an American principle, and it's an American value. And I might add that all of the publicly available polling shows the American people across the board support a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and equal opportunity.
Now, I hear you say they need to stand up, but what do you say to those people who say, hey, look, we have thousands of dollars in federal funding. I can't lose this.
They may lose it anyway, because if the budget plan that the GOP wants to pass comes to fruition, much of those dollars are going to be taken away anyway, right? So if you stand on principle, if you stand strong, now, okay, negotiate to some extent, but to completely cave in the face of basic fundamental American principles. Look, academic freedom is an American principle. Equal opportunity is an American principle. To the extent that the government wants you to engage in 1940s or 50s style exclusionary policies, discriminatory policies, I would hope that universities and businesses would say, look, I'll meet you, but I'm not going to cave in on the things that have made my company profitable, the things that have made my company competitive in this 2025 America.
And we've certainly seen some companies stand up. Delta is one of those.
Delta has stood up. J.P. Morgan Chase has stood up. The National Football League has stood up. Marriott Corporation. Look, there's a whole host that have stood up. Now, maybe they're changing their terminology, but the substance is what really counts. And look, we are at a point now where America is changing. It's becoming far more diverse. It's becoming a mosaic, a gumbo. And we've got, if we're going to compete with China, we need all that talent in the game, in the workforce, achieving, accomplishing, and in fact, contributing to the greatness of the future economy of America.
I like the gumbo reference.
You got it.
You know you're from the South.
Spicy kind.
I can't do spicy, but I do like some gumbo. Let's get into this. In a recent town hall with Senator John Ossoff, he responded to a woman who was upset with Democrats, saying that you all aren't doing enough. I need you to do enough. I elected you for a reason. She wants Trump impeached and out of office. Ossoff told her in order to achieve what she wants to achieve, they need a majority of the U.S. House and, of course, the Senate. Democrats have neither right now. Is the only way to bring change hinging on the results of 2026?
So first of all, I don't speak for the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, or for any political party, but I do speak for civil rights and equal opportunity, and I do believe that people in this moment want their elected official to be more assertive, more aggressive, more vocal. It's not just about the election in 2026, although that's important. It's about demonstrating that people will use their bully pulpit. They'll use their voice. They'll use their power in Congress, whatever it may be, to push back and to sharpen, if you will, the conversation about why these policies of the first 100 days are damaging and injurious to the future of America, to the state of Georgia. In Georgia, I noticed this morning, some of the publicly available polling shows that the president has lost a considerable amount of support. It's really support for his policies that have eroded. So these officials, these public officials, these elected officials, these politicians have to be more assertive, or the public will send a message to them in 2026 as well.
And speaking of message, it sounds to me like you're telling the people to take action. I know that the Urban League has taken action when it comes to the first 100 days. Part of that are lawsuits that have been filed. Can you talk to us a little bit about
So we
those?
filed a lawsuit represented by the Legal Defense Fund against 3 of these executive orders, but we're also part of the public conversation. This coming Saturday, there will be an event at the Smithsonian Museum of African American History called Freedom to Learn, which is about pushing back on those efforts to erase black culture and diminish that museum. On Monday, I participated in a Moral Monday activation in Washington, D.C. That activation, organized by Reverend William Barber, is about pointing out the devastating negative impacts of this proposed budget, which would cut Medicaid and health care, which would cut education, which would cut food stamps or SNAP, which would in effect erode this safety net that a compassionate, wealthy country, because America's wealthy with a $30 trillion economy, should and must have. So there's many, many partnerships, many, many activations, and I think you're going to see more as people want to make sure their voice is heard. Look, the First Amendment to the Constitution, the right to free speech, the right to participate in the democratic process, the right to freedom of assembly, the right to free press is crucial in a period like this. What I join many who are concerned about the erosion of American democracy, the concentration of power in the hands of the executive vis-a-vis the Congress. Already, of these 200 lawsuits that have been filed, a significant portion of them, maybe close to 75 to 80%, have gone against the administration and against the president. That's an early barometer that many of his actions are an overreach and really are an abuse of executive power. There's a process for the kind of change that he may assert. And that process requires a process that includes the Congress, includes the people weighing in, includes a more deliberate conversation, not the kind of bulldozing and tank tactics that you've seen in the first 100 days.
And I thank you for reminding everyone that this organization is not a political organization, does not swing left or right. It's for everyone, no matter who they voted for. And there are people who voted for the president who might be pulling back saying, okay, what's going on here? Other people saying he's doing a great job, right? In your perspective, in your opinion, past Republican administrations that have been in the seat where President Trump is right now, is there an example of a past administration that you felt like was holding up civil rights and making sure that that progression was moving forward?
So I'll just give an example. The Bush administration, which is the prior Republican administration, it was President Bush who signed an extension of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. I remember it vividly. I remember the signing ceremony. I remember the work and the negotiations that went in. Now, President Bush's record on civil rights was mixed, but we must give his administration credit for orchestrating and working with us on a bipartisan basis to extend the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And I think that took place in 05 or 06. The important thing to remember is that since that time, the Trump administration, both one and now two, have been just completely hell-bent on not enforcing civil rights laws, on not bringing cases on voting rights, on not pursuing bad, dirty, corrupt, and brutal police officers. They've not been committed to that. And they've used the power of the Justice Department in a very, very different way. So the Bush administration, even as I had great disagreements with them on matters of public policy, I believe is an administration that for the most part, on many issues, was strongly supportive of the rule of law and the system of American democracy. I think what you're seeing now is just an emasculation of the way in which change takes place. Look, there's three co-equal branches of government. And I say co-equal: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. Right now, we are very reliant on the judicial branch, federal judges, district, appellate, and even the Supreme Court, to really balance the scales and say to the executive branch, you've gone too far here, you've gone too far there. And I'm hopeful that that will hold, that the judicial branch will do its job, that they'll continue to do their job, and basically enjoin those things that violate the Constitution, the constitutional separation of powers. It is clear that the legislative branch has either been complicit or too silent. I'm hopeful that members of the legislative branch of Congress and the United States Senate, more than just a handful, will use their voices in this moment. What I say to the president is, you've got a chance for a reset. You've got a chance for a reset, but what you're going to have to do is change course. Repeal these anti-equal opportunity orders that divide America. Do a reset and reinstate those 250,000 federal employees who now have been destined to the unemployment line. And also scale back these tariffs that are doing great damage to the markets on Wall Street and the people on Main Street.
And I know you have that message to the president. Have you all discussed this in person? Is there a chance for you all to discuss this in person?
I am never opposed to a substantive, meaningful conversation. But I also don't engage in performative politics. There'll be no meetings that are just for show. A meeting for substance, a conversation for substance, to share our views. I am always welcome, always available, always ready to speak to anyone if I have a chance to convince them that what we do and what we stand for is best for America.
So you are open to that conversation?
Always open.
I want to bring things back here to home in Atlanta, if we could. affordable housing is one of the, big issues that a lot of people have, not just here in Atlanta, but big cities and small cities all over the country. Urban League of Greater Atlanta, one of their pillars, pillar number 4, talks about safe and affordable, adequate housing as a foundational success in life. Can you share a success story of how some of the programs that Urban League has, either the housing counseling or financial empowerment services, how have those benefited?
Those programs, housing counseling is really home buyer education. Financial counseling is really helping people develop a family budget, a personal budget, and a strategy to build their own income and build their own wealth. We work with people one-on-one, we work with people in classes. What I'm proud of is on a national basis, through our housing counseling programs, we probably help between 2,000 to 3,000 people a year become home buyers for the first time with mortgages that are not predatory and that are long-term with fixed interest rates. So we help people transition from being renters to being homeowners. But to answer the bigger question, the United States has gotten itself in a trough. We're in a ditch when it comes to housing, primarily because over the last 25 years, really since the beginning of the 20th century, since 21st century rather, since 9/11, we've simply not built enough housing units. And we certainly have not built enough affordable housing units. That's why average rents and average mortgages have been more than double or triple in increase than the inflation rate. So to paraphrase something, the rent's too damn high. The mortgages are too damn high, but there's a reason for it. What do we need? We need a building program to build affordable housing, to build workforce housing in this country. We need to have a plan over the next 10, 15, 20 years to literally build millions of new units, to renovate old, rundown, dilapidated housing, to build housing that people want in the 21st century. Both affordable rental and workforce rental, and homes that people can buy so they can pursue the American dream.
Do you think federal dollars should be used to help that?
Absolutely should be used to help that. Why not? If we can buy tankers and missiles, if we can give tax cuts to billionaires, what is wrong with an investment? And it could be done by capturing some of the profits made by, or some of the revenues generated by Fannie and Freddie over the last 15 or so years. President Biden had a plan to invest in housing. It was blocked in the United States Senate by Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. It was blocked, right? His original plan would have done that. People said it was too much, but it is not America to see people living on the streets of Atlanta. It is not America to see people living on the streets of Los Angeles, Chicago, Macon, Georgia. To see people living on the streets, to see people with a combination of economic challenges, mental health challenges, veterans living on the street because they simply cannot find affordable housing is not America.